I'm back. It's good to know you're still there. And if you're just joining us, you're watching Africa's finest breakfast show, New Day on People's Television. You find us on channel 120 on the Star Times decoder. My name is Anthony Omodu. Just few weeks and months to the 2015 general elections right here in Nigeria, the ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo wrote a strong-worded letter to the then president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, warning him of all his failures as the president of the country then and what awaited him coming to the 2015 general elections. Same has happened just recently, days back, when Olusegun Obasanjo, ex-president, once again took his pen and wrote a very, very strong worded letter to President Muhammadu Buhari, urging him not to seek for re-elections in the 2019 elections, and listing the litany of failed promises by the APC-led government. This has generated lots of discourse, and we decided to bring someone who has an eye for the top post in Nigeria. He intends to step in as an independent candidature come 2019 and going forward. We have in the studio one man who intends to give Buhari a run for his money, Jaye Geskia, in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
All right, let's shorten the 13-page letter to as much as just a one-page letter. And better still, the African proverb that says, take the message, don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
Do we leave the messenger in this case, or is the messenger as guilty as the message inside the letter?
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about African proverbs is that because proverbs are usually coined by elders, so usually African proverbs tend to exonerate elders. So they find a way to exonerate elders. You know, so so if we go by that, by African proverb, we would then exonerate the messenger in this case. But I think that what Nigerians really need to do is to look at both the message and the messenger. It's important to take the message very seriously. I mean, critically, have a critical engagement with the message. But it's also important to have a critical engagement with the messenger, because let's be very clear about it. There is nothing that President Obasanjo has said that Nigerians have not been saying. I'm sure that even on your program here, several Nigerians have been saying the same thing about where our nation was going.
We discussed a few days before the letter
exactly
came out,
was that. So Nigerians are already aware. They know that that we have a challenge. They know that we have a problem. They know that things are not working, and they know that things need to be done right. But you give it to President Obasanjo. He has this knack for waiting for the strategic moment to intervene. And so he intervenes at the strategic moment, and then all attention then focuses on him and his intervention, and then he becomes the champion. And that's where I am worried, and that's why I think Nigerians should be a little bit worried. You see, because Nigerians were talking about their problems, and in various corners across the country, I'm aware of several Nigerians that are organizing groups and the rest of that. I'm sure you belong to several chat groups yourself, the both of you, discussing Nigeria. So Nigerians are already organizing, working towards 2019 to ensure that they make a change. But the challenge now is that Obasanjo has intervened. He has called for a coalition for Nigeria, and then suddenly Nigerians are looking for the coalition for Nigerians. Yet, previously, before the letter, they were already building the coalition for Nigeria. Then Obasanjo talks. So what Obasanjo does strategically every time is to take the sail out of what ordinary people are doing, and then to sit on top of it. And once he then takes command of it, he can then channel it into a direction that is going to be less injurious for the ruling class. I mean, and he's done it several times. The fact that we had Jonathan was down to the fact that Obasanjo played a role in ensuring that the Yar'Adua Jonathan presidency came on board. The fact that APC, the APC merger, the fact that APC fielded Buhari and that they won was also, I mean, Obasanjo also contributed significantly. I mean, look at that dramatic tearing of card and leaving of the PDP and all of that. So, and what he has always done is to do that, to then shift attention so that it becomes, they can manage the crisis amongst themselves. And so if you look at it, critically speaking, everything Obasanjo said about President Muhammadu Buhari is correct, is what Nigerians have been saying, but it is also correct that Obasanjo himself is guilty of everything that he has written about, which is the point that he has not, acknowledged, that he has not accepted, because he sees himself as above the fray. Yet he is a major part of our, in fact, a key part and component of the problems that we have in this country in terms of leadership, succession.
Okay, now let's look at the federal government's response to the letter. I don't know if you listened to Live Mohammed yesterday, and we saw the way he outlined the various achievements of the administration as regards the economy. My co-presenter Anthony was, talking about the way he carefully
avoided,
tried to avoid some things, the way he coined some of the words he said. Now, from what you heard him say, what do you have to say about that?
The first thing is that let me congratulate the information minister for finally finding his voice again, because for quite a while he's been really absent, and I think he himself realized at a point in time that it was getting more and more difficult defending what was not defensible. I mean, and so he, and being an elderly person, he probably also felt like, because I'm sure, I mean, he has kids who are our age, who are, one of them is in the Lagos State House of Assembly, and I'm sure they will be telling him that, look, Daddy, you cannot just continue to be doing this. Keep quiet once in a while. So he did that for a while, but okay, so Obasanjo's letter has now brought him out. Okay, so at least let's congratulate him for finding his voice. But I mean, you would say that unlike in the past, this was not a vibrant, robust defense and response of, this was a very measured, carefully calculated, response, and trying not to rock the boat on both sides. Yes. With the government that he's serving, with Obasanjo that he knows can actually unmake, the government. So very careful, trying to be measured, and then avoiding the difficult issues, but like you say, you focus on the economy. So, I mean, you look at our statistics. The statistics tell us that we have returned to positive growth. So that's what the statistics has told us. So, I mean, if I was in his shoes, that's what I would also be, hammering on. But I mean, the same statistics also told us that in the last 3 years we have lost between 10 and 15 million jobs. That's very depressing. The same statistics also tells us that the reason we have returned to growth is not down to anything that is fundamental about our economy. It is because the price of crude has appreciated globally, and then because we have moved from being able to barely export 1.6 million to now exporting about 1.8 to 1.9 million barrels per day. So that's what it is. So it's still down to one of the biggest promises made by this government coming into office is diversification of the economy. So we went into a crisis because we're a monocultural economy, because we could not control issues around oil. We are coming out of the crisis again because it's not down to us. It's the global, oil prices and the market for it and the rest of that. And this is not going to be stable, but particularly not going to be stable during this. And unfortunately for this regime, they even have a bigger challenge with the fact that oil prices are appreciating, that the crude oil prices are appreciating. The bigger challenge that they have is that they have to find a way to keep petrol at 145 naira. Throughout this year. This is an election. This is election campaign year. They cannot afford to increase the price of oil. Yet everybody knows, if you are sincere with yourself, that they are already subsidizing fuel. Because right now, as at the beginning of December, as of November, landing cost was 171 naira. You have not added the profit margins that are legitimately, allowed. So. And it's because the price of crude is appreciating. Because we import the refined products. So as the crude prices appreciate, the cost of the refined products we also appreciate. So by the time we bring it back in and all of this, then it means that. So that's the catch-22, and those are the issues that the minister did not could not raise, because I mean that would have been negative, for the regime. Yeah.
In his statement, we noticed he tried to be very cautious, and saying that probably because of the ex-president's busy schedule, he did not notice the.
all the things
Yes.
that there is.
But is it not sad and shameful that they had to say it in a nice way just to please him? One,
Mhm.
and secondly, does it mean that Obasanjo's view supersedes the view of other Nigerians? Because
Absolutely.
when they say busy chef, that's why he didn't recognize.
Mhm.
So are they saying the views of millions of Nigerians who have noticed
Yeah.
because they are not very busy?
Yeah.
Other Nigerians have noticed that things are wrong. Are they saying it doesn't count? It's just Obasanjo's view that counts. Is that not a shame?
It is a shame, and it's the point I was raising earlier at the beginning when I said that Obasanjo himself is a very strategic person. I mean, he's been at every significant juncture in our history since the Civil War. You know, it's always been placed at very significant, positions. So because of that, he's learnt, he's understood, how to play all of this. So now the government is responding to him. They've actually played into his game. So now they have responded to him. In their response, just like you have said, they have elevated him above other Nigerians, because other Nigerians, including other prominent Nigerians, have been talking about the problems with Nigeria. So and they were dismissed. Less prominent Nigerians have been called whalers and then when they are typing the whalers, depending on how angry they are, the size of the capital letters and the rest of that. I mean, but now Obasanjo is suddenly, and they cannot call Obasanjo a whaler, so they have to do that. But it also means that what it means is that for the establishment generally, it's just an indication of the fact that the views that you and I hold really does not matter for them. It's views from amongst themselves, and the higher you are in their hierarchy amongst the establishment, the more serious they take your views. I mean, even if the view you are stating is just a regurgitation of what lesser people could have said in the past, and so it's also why we are in the part of why we are in the mess that we are in today, because it also means that when lesser people criticize and offer alternative solutions, they don't take it seriously. They don't look at it as something, because one, you even dismiss the criticism, so you cannot accept the alternative solution, and so you wait for an Obasanjo to come and do that. And what is Obasanjo's solution right now? It does just again, election is coming on, so for them is to ensure that yes, President Muhammadu Buhari is becoming by the day a bad sell for the ruling establishment, but to also ensure that the succession is orderly, in a manner that the transfer of power is orderly. It's not going to be chaotic, and it's not going to be out of their control. This is why this intervention has come at this point in time, and so we need to be sensitive to that. Take everything, use it, because he has affirmed what we have been saying, so we can use that to say that you can no longer dismiss what we have been saying. Obasanjo has affirmed it, and you have technically, in a manner of speaking, also agreed that he was right. And if you can agree that he was right, then it means that you are agreeing that we've been right, all along.
Okay, now another thing he said obviously the two major parties are no longer really proved not to be able to solve our problems in the country, so therefore calling for a new coalition. But then calling for a new coalition, there are several other political parties. So was there a need for him to have said that? And apart from the parties, we are talking about the individuals now. These individuals just go within one party to another. It's not like they're different individuals entirely. So do you really subscribe to that his statement of forming a new coalition?
That's actually the point that I was making, that because he went further to actually say that it was very deliberate. It was to take he dismissed both the PDP and the APC, which every Nigerian has been. Every Nigerian that is dissatisfied with the performance of the APC government have also been, agitated about, okay, so where's the alternative? The PDP certainly does not seem like an alternative to most Nigerians, So, but when he specifically now called for a coalition for Nigeria, he was already, and one of my friends says to me that that this guy, if you know him very well, that coalition for Nigeria has probably already been
Informed.
established in his Otta farm,
Yeah.
and that in a few weeks' time we just see a coalition for Nigeria announce itself, into the open. And so, like I told you, it fits into that pattern of trying to take control of the process and the rest of that. Yeah, but that said, it's very obvious, and this is for ordinary citizens now. It's very obvious that what has failed in Nigeria, what Obasanjo was unable to state very clearly, is that it is the establishment, is the ruling establishment that has failed completely. So, and there are two main representatives at the moment in terms of organizational representatives are the APC and the PDP, but also all of their clones, all the other parties that are cloned from them that include people, So it's that entire ruling establishment that has failed. So in a sense, in order for that the establishment to be upstaged, the Nigerians actually really do need to build their own mass movement, which is a coalition of some sorts. But it's not the coalition for Nigeria that Obasanjo is asking for. It should be a coalition of Nigerians, citizens, themselves acting, to take their
That
country
brings
back.
you into the picture. Now you intend to stand as an independent presidential candidate. How do you think it's possible to mobilize Nigerians, especially knowing the hunger in the land and the buying and selling of votes, and also INEC issue, power of incumbency? How do you think you can break this bounds and actually say, okay, Nigerians, come, let's be the new or the third movement to save Nigeria? How possible is it going to be? And fighting someone like Obasanjo.
And fighting someone like Obasanjo. Yeah. It's not going to be something easy. It's going to be extremely very difficult, but it is doable. It is not impossible. It is not an insurmountable task. Okay. And I will explain to you. Now, one of the things that we say in Nigeria very regularly, and one of the reasons why you and I, people like us, have been out of politics, is that we say politics is dirty, there is no sincerity in politics, and then of course votes don't count because people buy votes and the rest of that, and of course you and I don't have the kind of resources to buy to buy votes and the rest of that. So this has been one of the reasons why most Nigerians have expressed this in actually not even getting onto the voters register at all. Now, and I've said to people, I said, look, if you track a trajectory of our voting pattern since 1999, you would see that a significant majority of Nigerians have not been participating. Who are qualified by age to participate have not been participating. So we have a voters register that is about 58, 60 million registered voters that have collected PVC, for example. We should have, with a population of 180 million, we should have a voters register on that voter about 100 million people, given that our population is also a youthful population, So it means that the bulk of Nigerians are outside of that. So the first strategy is to get Nigeria. So if you are complaining, if you think that the process is terrible and the rest of that, the only way you can do this is to get registered, collect your PVC, and then be ready to vote. Then secondly, you look at even those who are on the voters register, more than half of them, about 60% of them, don't ever go out to vote. We've always had a turnout that is less than 40% in every general election in this country. That's even amongst those who go out to register. And then look at the last election, for example, 2015. 28 million people voted. 15 million voted for the winner, for the eventual winner of that election. 15 million people out of a population of 180 million. Less than 10% of the population actually elected the president of the country. When we get angry as Nigerians, we are very good at ventilating our anger. Programs like this, we are on the social media. When we meet on the street, motor park, and the rest of that, we ventilate. But the only way we can do this is to actually become registered voters so that we can change it. So that's the first thing that we are doing, getting people who are angry and they want their country. They know their country can do better, and they want their country to do better. That the first thing is that you need to be in a position to exercise your civic duty. So you need to get registered and collect your PVC. So that's the first one. Now the second thing that then needs to happen is that, okay, so voting is transactional, has been transactional. So I tell people, I say the majority of people who can be bought are already voting. Because that's the reason why you don't go out to vote, because you cannot be bought. You don't have an option, so you don't go out to vote. So I say, so if we get people out to get registered and they are there, they would dwarf the numbers of those who can be bought, because those who can be bought would vote for the people who are buying them, who are their regular buyers, so they will vote for those also. That's the second step, is to also ensure that, okay, look, if we get this done, this can happen. And then the electoral process itself is improving every day. Now, even if the new Electoral Act amendment is not signed before and we use even the one that was the previous one, the 2015 one, the one that Jonathan signed before the election, so that we could not use for that election, but that if we had used, would have been here. If only that one is done with card readers, and the rest of that, you minimize, the risk of vote buying. So it means that you can only actually buy individual votes. You can't buy collective, votes, mass votes. So, and you can't do thumb printing and the rest of that. So what that means is that if all people who are actually concerned get registered and come out to vote, they would dwarf these people. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing. Then finally is that for all of this to happen, you need to actually have a movement, a political movement across the country, So we are actually building a movement across the country. I mean, we have said that the theme of why we are engaged in this is because Nigeria has been hijacked by a set of people, the establishment, who run the country according to their own very selfish and greedy interests. Now, all over the world, elites hijack power. But the difference is that there are elites who also understand enlightened self-interest, who understand that certain things need to work so that the control that the elite has over the society can be sustained, so that you don't have to use force, so that people will willingly submit to your control. So they make sure that things actually work. Now, unfortunately, we don't have elites, the establishment in Nigeria, with that enlightened self-interest. And so they're that greedy, and they undermine everything, threatening the entire fabric of the country. So, and we are saying that we can build a new movement. So we say what we want to do is to take Nigeria back from these elites, from these captive, elites. And we are building a movement that we are calling Take Back Nigeria. And that's it. I believe that if all Nigerians just come out and decide that enough is enough with these guys, we are going to change this country. Yeah.
Right now, from what you said, talking about Nigerians being able to come out and vote, we need to improve that. But then again, we know that the process of registration and all of that, it's not that people want to do these things, but people have busy schedules.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest? How would you advise INEC to improve on whatever it's doing, so that it makes it easier for people to go out there and get registered and get their PVCs and all of that? Because a lot of people want to do this, but then you go out there and then you're not being attended to. There's a lot of time wasting. Your time is wasted. At the end of the day, people just get frustrated and go back to their houses. So people really want to do it, but how can our, the INEC make this thing easier for Nigerians?
Actually, the challenge really is not so much with INEC. Okay. It is about how government functions. Okay. And the synergy between the different types of government. So INEC is ready to do this. INEC puts people in different locations that are hosted by other institutions of government, like Amacare and the rest of that, but then you don't get the required level of support from the institutions that are hosting this to enable that to happen. Okay, so because and so that slows things down. Now, and I think that is also deliberate on the part of the establishment. Okay, now so IDEC has said there is continuous voters registration, you can go out, but if you get there, you can't get registered. The aim is defeated. So but I think that what Nigerians really need to do is to simply insist. Let me give you one example. During I was going to say this last fuel crisis, but I'm going to rephrase it because I know we are going to have several fuel crises this year. So okay, but during the most recent one, though, a friend of mine, Conrad Ayuba, the NLC president, was relating to us. He said he was traveling out the period between December and the New Year, between what's it called, Christmas and the New Year. He was traveling, and he didn't have fuel in the vehicle. And he was just saying that, okay, we will have to buy black market on the way. Then just outside the basket, there was a filling station, and there was a long queue. So he was curious, but the gate was shut. So he was curious, so he went and then he parked. He took his to park. What's up here? So and then because there was also a crowd, so that was why he stopped. So and people were just angry, but they were out there. They were just saying that, look, these people were selling, and all of a sudden they just stopped, selling and closed the gate and said that was all. And there were 2 trucks were inside. People knew there was fuel. So I said okay, and people were just going to sit down, and so he said okay. So he got down. He now went there and asked them, why are you selling? He said their head office called and said they should stop selling. He said, okay, so can you call your head office and tell them that so person is here now, and that if you don't open this thing up now, that is going to call people from labor house, and they are going to sell this fuel to Nigerians at the regulated price, with or without you or something. 2 minutes later, they called the attendant and said they should start selling. Now, so what does that and in this case with the INEC situation registration, so Nigerians should not be frustrated. If you get there, there's nobody there, wait. By the time you are 10, you are 20, you are there, and you are actually making a scene, somebody is going to attend to you. Because the idea is that people want to frustrate Nigerians from actually getting on board, because they know that the electoral process is getting better.
As we wrap up, let's go back a little bit to Obasanjo's letter. We had Professor Sage saying that the Buhari's government has been the best government, even including the 8 years of Obasanjo, that the Buhari government is still the best Nigeria's ever had. Do you agree with him?
I think he's probably living on a different planet. I'm absolutely not sure where he lives right now and where his experience is coming from. But let's be clear about a few things. Okay, so Boko Haram has been tackled in the sense that they don't control territories again, even though they still do attacks. But that is just the tip of insecurity. Now, we have tackled Boko Haram, but herdsmen farmers clashes have now become even more threatening to the existence of Nigeria than Boko Haram. Boko Haram was taking territory by territory. Now, herdsmen farmers clashes is now across the entire country.
Is that not a wrong term? Herdsmen farmers clash. Is that not a wrong term? Knowing that it's the herdsmen that are actually doing the attacking and killing.
That's why it's still a conflict, because it's 2 groups that are in a conflict too, and I want to avoid a situation where you actually begin to say, because let's also look at something like there is beneath this a history of herdsmen farmers clashes that happen normally because of the contestation for land. Grazing. I'm coming. Okay. That's beneath. That's there. Now, above that layer now is the issue that we now have these armed herdsmen that actually attack. Many of whom are actually transactional. Okay. So I have been wronged, or a cattle has been rustled somewhere. Okay, you actually go and pay this particular armed gangs now to go on a reprisal on your behalf, and then they do that. And like Professor Wale Soyinka said, in doing that, they place almost equal value on the life of a human being and the life of a cow. You know that, and as he said, cow which is replaceable, human life which is not replaceable. You know, so but the biggest challenge is really that we actually have a government in place that allowed this to get to this extent. So it's like taking on security, for example, it's like taking one step forward and then several steps backward. Because whatever it is that we gained with degrading Boko Haram, we have lost several grounds with allowing this to be. And it's like when they say that the Nigerians, that the reason why we have challenges with fuel and the rest is that Nigerians take fuel across the border to go and sell the other, as if these people who take it across the border are ghosts. You say tankers get missing, as if tankers are ghosts. Herdsmen now too, you can't see them, as if they are also ghosts. I mean, these are human beings. They can be tracked. They are armed. They move in trucks. Yeah. Okay, so they can actually be tracked. It means that if you have a military policy that you deploy a military division, you can tackle this right from the source, from the borders, and ensure that you don't, and then you can leave policing to deal with internal, security. So again, there is no way any of these things can be happening. Whether it is the militants in the Niger Delta that are bunkering oil, or herdsmen that are attacking village, there's no way any of these things can be happening without some form of state collusion, without the fact that there are politically very highly placed persons, who control instruments of the state, who are actually protecting and sponsoring it. This cannot happen where you have a functional government and a government that is responsible. So and then you look at it. So what's the other claim that they also that Sergey is talking about? The economy. We have already talked about the economy. What's improving in an economy where people are actually losing jobs, where businesses are closing, where businesses cannot actually grow? And then the worst part of it is that you have still not solved the problem of the fact that you have governments in Nigeria where the different arms and agencies of government work in parallel as if they are not part of the same government. So you have agricultural policies that has no relationship with the industrial policies that have no relationship with the infrastructure policy and the rest of that. And when you continue to do this, we get to this. So I think that Professor Saki is living in a different planet.
Okay. We're still talking about it before we wrap up. Talking about Governor Fayose responded to the letter. He actually said we were told by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that Yaradua was healthy. We were also told by him that Jonathan, was very fit for the job. And then in 2015, of course, he changed his mind and said, no, we don't want Jonathan again. Buhari can do the job. And right now, he's saying something else. And Fayose actually advised him to stop trying to control politics from the outside. Would you also agree to that advice?
Absolutely, I agree with it. But and the funny thing, it says something for him. We have said that he's strategic, but the other, when you flip the coin on the other side, is the fact that it tells us that he's also a strategic failure, because his choice of leaders have always been failures. So it means that he's not a person that has good judgment, even though he can understand the dynamics enough to try to seize the moment and try to control it and channel it. But in terms of the solutions that he has offered, they have been strategic failures. And I think it's also deliberate on his part. There are people who who have an eye on history, who want history to simply see them as the best. And they deliberately ensure, that's why they don't allow good succession. They deliberately ensure that the people who come after them are people who cannot outperform them, so that people can always refer to them as the Messiah, their period is. And I think Obasanjo has a Messiah complex, that Messianic complex. And that's why deliberately he intervenes and he makes a wrong choice.
I think that reminds me of what we discussed yesterday about bipolar. People who have bipolar disease, they have this kind of false esteem. Yeah. So probably Obasanjo will be looking like that.
It's probably our own Trump.
All right. Okay, just to wrap it up with what Fayose Shane has said, and Professor Sagi, do you think Obasanjo, this might just be an end to his several letters he has written in the
Nah,
past?
this is if I know Obasanjo very well. No, that's in fact the biggest thing about Obasanjo is that he listens to the people. He listens to what people are saying, but he does not listen to anybody. So I mean, he makes up. So he can listen to what people are saying and make up his mind and do something, but he doesn't really listen to anybody. So it's not as if anybody can actually advise him. So I don't see Obasanjo really taking it back. I think that in fact the letter and the responses he has gotten, both positive and negative, actually has affirmed the reason why he came out, and is going to continue. Is going to continue to be prominent.
What he's actually doing, is it part of his what an elder statesman is supposed to do?
Now that is also the problem. Yeah, you know what an elder statesman is supposed to do, but you were also in a society where elders have lost their place and youths have taken over. You begin to work, because now in Nigeria, some elders actually behave like young persons, like youths. The kind of statements you hear from some elders, you get really worried. And I will tell you this. Look for example, the Edspen attacks and the rest of that. Let's look at it. I am very certain in my mind that although the majority of Edsmen may be Muslims, okay, but I'm very certain that there are Christian Edsmen or even animist Edsmen. And although the majority of the people in the Middle Belt, particularly in Benue, that communities that are being attacked, may be Christians, I'm very certain that there are Muslim farmers and Muslim persons. But I'm worried when leaders of CAN and leaders of JNI issue statements from as if these blocks are Muslim blocks and Christian blocks. And that's not what you expect from elders, for example. When elders speak in that way, I would have expected, because I should think that both CAN and JNI should be interested in protecting every citizen, their rights and the rest of them that they should do. So I get very worried, really, and it's because we, as a society, we've been losing our values, and it's the elders that have actually taken the front seat in that journey towards the loss of values. Look, what kind of role models are they to younger ones? What do they do? What have they done with their time in office and the rest of that?
All right, very interesting discourse. This is how we'll be calling it a wrap. We've been looking at the Obasanjo's letter and implications, and we've got reactions from Fayoshe, Professor Sage, and every other Nigerian speaking on that very letter. And I want to say a big thank you to Jai Geske, the man who intends to be the independent presidential candidature for 2019, giving his take as regards the Obasanjo letter and saying probably we shouldn't listen to him because he has this hidden agenda to lead the next movement, which Nigerians obviously have already started. So don't let him take the sail from you, or the wind from your sail. Just keep focused. And the key thing is go there, get your PVCs, so that we can actually decide who leads us come 2019, because that's where our power counts. No more selling or buying a vote. I want to say thank you very much for joining us from 7:30 until this very moment, and somebody has some last words for you.
Yeah, I do have an awesome Thursday, and remember to pay your taxes. We'll see you same time, same station tomorrow.